Hello, California. This is Bakersfield City Voices with your host, Corey Gonzalez. Today's special guest is Alicia Obeirne. Alicia, if you could introduce yourself shortly, please.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Corey. Again, my name is Alicia Obeirne. I am a school social worker at the Greenfield Unified School District. I work at the community school, which is it's an alternative school for our kids grades 3 through 8. And I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So today's issue is talking about homelessness overall in the United States and how it might reflect on Bakersfield, California, especially on the student population, because these homeless people tend to have children as well. Maybe they have children before they become homeless, or they become homeless, and whatever their situation has, they tend to have children. Then we have people that are in the system from the get-go.
Sure.
The United States has seen a 45% increase in homeless population from 2015 to 2024, from about 770,000 people to 1.1 million people, according to End Homelessness. On top of that, there's an estimated 7.2 million people at risk of becoming homeless. So you think of all these people they're talking about living paycheck to paycheck, and those are the 7.2 million. What's really concerning is California alone in 2024 reported about 187,000 homeless in just California. And that's from the state Senate. So when we look at this kind of stuff with homelessness throughout the nation and in California, how do you think this projects onto the student population? And have you seen similar increases over the past couple of years at the schools you've worked at?
Definitely. I think the numbers are high. The numbers are incredibly high. California, Bakersfield specifically. And so it's hurting our schools. It's hurting our kiddos. It's definitely helped. They're struggling. They're struggling just with stable housing. So that does not help with their attendance. That doesn't help with their behavior. That doesn't help with their mental health, and their academic performance overall. And it's out of their control, really. And they're just kids. They're just kids. And so, I think, like you mentioned, the rising numbers are really staggering. I know that the public schools reported over 1.5 million students were experiencing homelessness. And this is a huge increase it's an increase from 2022-23 school year of about 12%, but 28% from the year before that, 21-22, is kind of like our COVID year coming out of. So we're increasing even from that, which is incredible. So I like to look at our local numbers because looking at our student population right now, last school year, 24-25, we had over 7,000 students reported in our school district, and of that, over 600 of them were reported as homeless, which is about 8%, which is a lot for this community. Absolutely. And in our community especially, we are in a community where very low resources are around, and so it's very hard for these kids to get to school. Transportation becomes a problem. Just school resources when they're out on campus, it's really, really difficult for them to be involved in sports or after school activities because they don't have the transportation, and sometimes it's just very difficult. So it definitely has been a goal of mine to keep these kids, this population specifically, motivated, because our goal, of course, is to get them to high school and get them to graduate and get them to become good humans out there, Absolutely. And so I was also looking at those numbers as well, and about 74% of those McKinney-Vento homeless foster youth, only about 10% of them graduated, and so those numbers I really would like to focus on to get those numbers higher for us.
It's a big thing too with the homeless population is they're probably the students that have the least at home, or I guess lack thereof, motivation. There's no parental or guardian guidance that's kind of encouraging school outside of just the school itself. So it's doubly important for the school staff to make sure those relationships are strong and they have reasons to come in and develop that efficacy.
Absolutely.
A key thing too is the reason there is a discrepancy between the amount of students that are experiencing homelessness and the amount of reported through End Homelessness is that there tend to be more homeless children than homeless individuals that are just out either in shelters or refusing help at shelters.
Right.
And we can start to look more at that earlier number, the figure of 7.2 million people that are at risk. You have families that are between homes, and maybe the kid has to go live with grandma for a while, or you have children that are switching between foster homes.
Sure.
And that's why there might be a lot more students that experience homelessness than there are adults that are reported throughout
Absolutely.
The nation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Moving forward, End Homelessness criticizes the shortcomings of our homeless facilities across the nation and claims that they are insufficient. And I can see why that makes sense. And tying it back to that earlier 8% you talked about with the students, Bakersfield overall has about a 1 in 200 homeless population. So for every 200 people, there's at least one person that's homeless. And you think that might not be that big of a number. It turns out to about 0.5% up to like a 0.6%.
Sure.
But every single day I drive to work, I see at least one homeless person or one campsite that's been set up by a homeless person. And it's kind of glaring how obvious it is, even if the percentage seems so small, because the population is so large here.
Absolutely.
Now, when it comes to these programs, at least on a school level, how do you feel that these supports actually work for our students that are suffering with the homelessness issue?
Well, like you mentioned, Kern County is actually listed as the 12th largest county in California to identify student population recognized as homeless. So that's pretty huge for all of California. It's pretty huge. So, like you said, driving to work too. I do the same thing. I drive down a long street and I see kids waiting for the bus. Outside of hotels and with their parents a lot of times. But it definitely is. Definitely is a problem that we need to, the numbers need to go the other way for sure, and so I think some of the programs that we have, so McKinney-Vento, we bring up that's a program that helps to support students in schools. It offers transportation, like I mentioned before, which was a problem. It also offers meals, meals for even after school programs, counseling, other mental health supports too. So they have access to a lot of resources at no cost to them or their families. It doesn't matter about insurances and all of that. Every year we do a school supply donation for them. We actually have they're allowed to come and they can get free haircuts and they can get a free backpack and they can kind of get them excited about going back to school and give them some hope and some just some excitement, because we want school to be a positive place for them. It's a place where they get 2 solid meals, sometimes 3. They have activities, they have social supports, they have like I said, counseling supports. A lot of times we help connect them and their families to medical and dental resources. We have dental clinics that come on our campuses and provide free teeth cleanings for them and teeth screening. So we have a lot of supports that once they get them onto campus. And I think that's the important part is, like you mentioned, these families are homeless for a lot of different reasons. And homeless can mean being doubled up, living with multiple family members, or living in not just shelters, but also in hotels and sometimes in cars, too. And so there's a lot of different ways that kids can be identified as McKinney-Vento. But I think our ultimate goal is to get them to school, because we can provide them a lot more services if we can identify them,
Absolutely.
and I think that's the important part. I think a lot of our struggles too are some of our outlining areas, like Greenfield specifically. We're kind of got a lot of rural population out here. The farther you go, you get a little bit more rural. So there's a little bit more limited resources, fewer shelters, fewer, transportation gets harder. If we have to pull kids from different, areas of our district, it gets a little more challenging for our families. And so I think identifying them as McKinney-Vento signs them up for all these programs and ensures them we will get you to school. I don't care where you live. We're going to find you and we're going to bring you to school, and because it's important. We want to make education important for them because it helps on many different levels, but it also could help with trying to ease some trauma that they're going through, some anxieties that they're going through, and teach them education is a positive thing for them, for growth. And also, we're trying to get rid of our absenteeism, trying to help our attendance too. Of course, we are a school district, but we are a school district because there's kids in our schools, and so we want to help every single one of those kiddos.
I can definitely see how transportation is a big issue, and I can see why you emphasize that the hardest part is just getting them there in the first place. With so few resources compared to other families,
Sure.
You could see why it might seem daunting for the parent to even try to get them to school in the morning. And I've seen several students myself in my time working here at the community school where it's really not the kid's fault. The parents that are just having insane difficulties, whatever their stories may be, and children are suffering because of it. And I think the programs are amazing because of that. It gives them the opportunity, despite their origins, to, come have a chance to succeed at school.
Absolutely.
So expanding on that, from your personal experience, what are the effects of the status of students struggling with stable housing on the emotional and academic well-being of students? Like, are there any factors or effects that most people don't take into account when they think of these students?
Well, absolutely. I mean, they're students. They're kids. They're some of these kids are in kindergarten. Some of them are even littler than that, and then we've got high school kids. And so you've got a lot of emotional issues that we see, a lot of anxiety, just because of where they're coming from. A lot of, especially the older kids, they don't want to talk about where they were sleeping last night or where they were living or what they ate, for dinner. And so there's a lot of stress that comes from that. And also a lot of these kids move a lot. A lot of the hotels that are eligible for our homeless families, they can only stay for a very limited time. So they could stay for 2 weeks and then they have to relocate again and kind of keep moving around until they can get some more permanent housing. So that leads to a lot of stress because they don't know, they see their mom stressed and they equally take that on too. So that's a big thing for them too, because, you shouldn't have a 10-year-old having to worry about something like that. And so embarrassment too, they have a lot of embarrassment with their friends. And so they tend to have, less friends because they just don't want to talk about it. And they can't have sleepovers and they can't, things like that. And so there's a lot of embarrassment there. They also have a lot of hard time forming relationships. They have some trust issues, and so they have a lot of problems there with that, forming those relationships, even with teachers and adults too. They do, but we also see a lot of emotional responses, a lot of frustration, sometimes withdrawal, and that could lead to behaviors, of course, getting into fights and getting into, some misbehaviors in the classrooms. And then they could also just pure exhaustion, because they're not sleeping well, they're not eating well, and they could be living with 3 or 4 families in a 2-bedroom apartment, and so it's, if someone's up watching a movie, you don't get to go to sleep even if you have school tomorrow, so there's some of that too. So I think that's on the emotional level. But then if we go more of an academic, of course those emotional levels bleed onto the academic. It makes it really hard to do homework when you don't have space to do homework, or things like that. Absences goes back to transportation a lot of times, but could also go back to just parents having a hard time, having a hard time if they have multiple children in the house. I was recently with a family who there was 6 kids in a 1-bedroom hotel room, and mom was just struggling to get groceries, because she didn't have a car that could accommodate all the kids to go to the grocery store, and so it was really, really a hard time for families for like that, so that makes it hard for the kid to be interested in schoolwork when he's worried about how are we getting dinner tonight for my brothers and sisters, and so they do tend to miss a lot of assignments. So their grades get affected. They have really a hard time concentrating, which also again leads to stress and sometimes fatigue. They also tend to participate less. They don't tend to be the ones that raise their hand, and even though they might have the answer, they just don't have the confidence. And so that can help lead to some of that problems as well. But and that's the part that I think where McKinney-Vento could really help out a little more too, is somebody wants to play football after school and they don't have transportation. Let's help it. Let's help them get some transportation. And I feel like this community specifically, I've really seen that a lot, because I've worked in other districts and bigger districts, but this district being as small as it is, even as big as it is, a lot of opportunities here and a lot of community involvement I've seen too. People want to help, and I think that I've really seen a lot of community involvement here, and I hope kids feel that, I mean, some of them don't appreciate it quite yet, but I hope that they do eventually,
Absolutely. In terms of that appreciation, from my personal experience, the teachers I remember the most are ones that were the hardest on me and the most critical, because they showed me that I was capable of doing the work. I just had to believe in myself and put in the effort. And that might be a lot harder for a student that's struggling with a homelessness issue. And things like being so overly tired that you just can't stay awake throughout a lesson. I've seen that with the students that I've worked with before. And it's not even students that are considered or enrolled in the McKinney-Vento program, right? There are some students that have struggles that don't fall under these categories that still need those supports.
Sure.
And then they're magnified even more if they're students that are under McKinney-Vento programs, because they just don't have that stability at home. They don't have that consistent place to sleep. And I can absolutely see where a lot of the things you're saying can reflect in the classroom. Now, a rather concerning case. Now, this isn't very specific to the student population. However, there's some implications in it. There was Grants Pass v. Johnson, in which essentially it was ruled that it's not considered cruel and unusual punishment to arrest a homeless person for falling asleep in public, because they don't really have anywhere else to go, and all they want is some shade. They'll set up on a bench. They want some structure, anything, because shelters can be at capacity pretty easily, and a lot, especially in places with high populations like Bakersfield, even that on the homelessness rate that we have here is enough to fill those facilities.
Sure.
So, and there's also some that are so mentally unwell that they don't recognize that they're being helped, and they refuse the support, and they refuse to go to the shelters, and they just want to fall asleep, right? It's a basic human need to fall asleep. And the Supreme Court ruling, not just some random court somewhere else in random part of the United States, it's the actual Supreme Court ruling said this was not considered cruel and unusual, when all they want is somewhere to sleep, and they need support. They don't need to be incarcerated. So what do you think the implications of this case are for homeless supports like McKinney-Vento? Does it bode well for the future?
Well, first of all, this case was amazing, and I had never even heard of it until you threw it my way, and I was just shocked that they were actually arresting people for sleeping in parks and not hurting anybody, just sleeping, and I know that Bakersfield's had some issues with that as well, trying to keep them in an area where they're not being disruptive, or even a lot of times they're on the freeways or places they shouldn't be, just for safety wise. But one of the posts that I saw in this case was said that we will never arrest our way out of homelessness. And I loved that, because you can't, putting them in a cell isn't changing the problem. And so I think that that's ridiculous. And it also leads to another problem, which is our prison systems are overcrowded as well, right? I mean, they've been releasing people because we don't have space, and so I think that leads just to a bigger problem over here. So we're not really balancing out the problem, nor are we trying to fix it. And so I think that a lot of these families and people in general who are homeless, many different reasons, sometimes it's the money and it's the financial part of it, but sometimes it's mental health issues, sometimes it's substance abuse issues, sometimes there's just stuff out there that we don't know about. And I think that's the part that we need to try to focus more on, and not put them in a jail cell and give them a good night's sleep for one night and a quiet, warm space where they're safe, and then kick them out again, because how did that solve the problem? They're going to be right back, and one of the things I looked at locally was Open Door Network, because they help a lot of our homeless here in many different ways. And I think they're kind of currently being bought out right now, but they operate on an estimated $17 to $22 million budget, which I thought was amazing. But roughly 95% of that is funded through grants, right? And so when I was thinking about this Grants Pass case, I was thinking that it's very, very small community. I mean, I think, what did I read? 38,000 people in this community. So it's a very small community. And so they probably, or more than likely, don't have resources like this, like a shelter that could have, $20 million to have this building built, but there's got to be smaller communities. And I bring it back to Greenfield, because I see here, even the smallest of people are doing big things. They have food drives for families all the time. A lot of churches provide, clothing in the winter, and there's a lot of different things that we can do on a smaller level that rather than putting them in jail, unless they've committed a crime, but other than that, you can't arrest your way out of homelessness. It's just not going to happen. It leads to another problem.
Yeah. It's just jam-packed jail cells for no reason,
right.
With people that don't deserve to be there.
No. Not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
And, leading into that, I'm glad you're bringing up local efforts. In the research I conducted for this overall show, Bakersfield City Homeless Committee has actually canceled 5 of the last 7 regular meetings that have been scheduled since July of 2025. They're monthly meetings where they go over all different sorts of data points. And in that last report of July 2025, they had several hundreds of things set up to be built for support, but none of them reported as completed, and we haven't heard anything from them since on those specific issues. how does this feel in terms of like the future of how Bakersfield addresses the homeless problem? Is it still going to be something that feels like it's on the back burner at a city level? Is it indicative of how California addresses homelessness in general, and part of why California alone has almost 17% of the entire United States homeless population?
Unbelievable. I think there's a lot of mixed signals in Bakersfield right now, for sure. I think the discussions are continuing around our transitional housing and our public input on our homelessness solutions. But on the other hand, local reports have highlighted ongoing efforts tied to homelessness, like the fires that the homeless, that there's been some fires that have been started on their behalf, and the mental health crisis, and the strain on our downtown areas. I know just the debris and things that are left behind that, so I know there's a lot of issues that concerns with the city itself. But the repeated cancellations leave us to worry that the response is becoming reactive instead of proactive, I think. And many people tend to feel more hopeful when they see consistent meetings, like you said, updates, change, growth, something, at least talking about it, visible collaboration. Because it's I go back to the local resources again, too, because I think the Greenville Resource Center here, I've been a part of a lot of meetings that they hold, these monthly meetings where they have these collaborative meetings where local community members come together and share their things that they have going on, events that they have going on, opportunities they have going on. But it's a great place to network. Like, hey, I have this family that's living over here that needs this resource. Like, what can we do? And there's 6 people there that I have, job training. Oh, I have help with doing your taxes. Oh, I have help with, health insurance, and boom, boom, boom. We just got this family, 5 resources in one room. And I think when they don't hold these meetings, things like that don't happen. These networks, these conversations, hey, I can help here. I can help here. If we don't hold these, and people don't hold meetings for different reasons. Maybe there's money, maybe there's time, maybe there's, bigger issues. I don't know if you can have a bigger issue than homeless in Bakersfield right now, but things come up. There's reasons that they don't have them, but ultimately it's our people, our community people. We're all one big community that are suffering, and it and this is leading on, going down into our kids, because a lot of these people have families, and so it just, I think, coming from my standpoint, is I want change for that. I think that's where education comes in, because I think this is where my focus is to, especially this population, you have got to come to school. You've got to learn, you've got to grow, because you're going to go graduate and you're going to go out there and get a job and you're going to have an apartment, and this is going to be a different life for you, and maybe you'll be able to give back in some way at some point, and so I think I'm hoping that it goes that direction, and I'm hoping that the city of Bakersfield, I know that they're working on building more shelters. I know that they're working on a lot of that, but it takes money, and that always goes back to that, which slows things down, especially in times like this when budgets are hard. And so I think that if we can help our kiddos stay in school and see the importance of school, and not just the academic part, but also the emotional part, the connections that they make, and the value of that, then I think we can hopefully see our numbers turn around. Yeah,
absolutely. You brought up earlier that, like, what's the bigger issue in Bakersfield than homelessness right now? And the first thing that comes to mind is just, we do have like a bit of a drug problem here, but those are hand in hand, because we have so many homeless that are like, I think that some of the leading causes of homelessness we have are just lack of funds. They cannot afford to live, lack of affordable housing. So maybe they have some income, but they just don't have enough regular income to afford it. Or we have people with substance abuse issues, easily top 3. And then we have some more that have mental disabilities that are just incapable of operating, that need constant 24/7 support. But that's a big one, is the substance abuse issues.
Absolutely.
It's been on record, everybody's seen it in every aspect, every area of the United States. People will throw their entire lives away for substance abuse. And students get exposed to that pretty early. And students that are in these programs, that are enrolled in McKinney-Vento, are in environments outside of school that expose them to those even more often. And I think it really emphasizes the points you've been making on getting these kids to school and give them something they care about that isn't, or that kind of distracts them from their problems that they have at their family life.
Yeah, give them a new focus, right?
Yes, new focus, absolutely.
I agree.
So for the general future, I know there's been a lot of, you mentioned wildfires that have put people into the homelessness kind of facilities that we have and caused an influx. And we also had just the sheer economic trouble that has been inflation because of COVID and all the
Sure.
different
Yeah.
time of shipping issues we're having now. I mean, we also have the current war going on that's causing gas to go up to
Right.
$6 a gallon, pretty much even at the fast trip.
Right.
Right, $6 a Chevron. I was like, okay, I get it.
Right.
But fast trip, you kidding me? Not so fast anymore.
Right. Right.
But it's realistic that this is an issue, and it's only going to become exacerbated if it's not addressed properly. And
Agreed.
I heavily agree with your point that the regular consistency of the meetings is what's important. Even if not everything's getting done right away, because things do take time and money, having those meetings actually being held and discussed and given more public opportunities to speak at a city kind of governmental level would be a significant help in terms of addressing the issue, making people more aware of it, and making them aware of what they can do to help, even if it's not directly going and serving foods at soup kitchens or whatever it is.
Just to keep the programs alive and keep them going.
Exactly. Keep people aware of them. If every person donated $1, it would be several hundred thousands of dollars.
Or even their time, you know, even their time. And I know Cap K is a big company or a big nonprofit around here that helps provide food for a lot of families, and they travel all over Bakersfield. But it takes people to be a part of that and volunteer their time to donate the food and to stand there and pass it out. And so it just a little bit of time. It doesn't have to be money always, you know.
Right. Yeah, and honestly, that's what these children need, at least, is just time and attention from people who care.
Absolutely.
Because they probably don't get that genuine parent or guardian attention that a lot of kids thrive off of to, you know, be motivated to pursue school and behave at home or behave in their families in general, especially if they don't have a home to go to. If they don't have adults that they can tether to and tie themselves to, and the only option that they have is someone who either is mentally unwell and not receiving support, or is choosing substances over the family, or is just trying their hardest and nothing's working out for them. It makes it all the more important for everybody in the community to step in and be aware. And so there's a small call to action on Bakersfield City to increase the regularity of these meetings, or at least be more consistent with it. And just for people to keep trying when they can, because not everybody has the ability to. Again, that figure of 7.2 million houses that are at risk of becoming homeless. Everybody has their own struggle that they're going through. Some are better off than others. Just that little bit of money and time, whatever it is that people can dedicate to it, can help bring up the floor so much.
Absolutely. I agree. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, I believe that is our time for today. Thank you so much, Alicia, for coming on and talking on my podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing the topic up. It's a good one to talk about. So thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.